Hey everyone, I'm Bill McLeod. Probably getting used to this face already. Sorry about that. Today I want to talk about pets, but because of somebody, I have to do a little disclaimer first. I think I was pretty clear on this, and there's a disclaimer on the channel profile. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a paralegal. I am a real estate agent. I'm a property manager. I'm a licensed condominium holder for license. Sorry. I'm an author, I'm an actor. I've taught Landlord Tenant Act before, Residential Tenancies Act, and I'm a former police officer. But because I'm a landlord, I've been through a ton of courses. I have my director's course, my advanced director's course for management. So I think I can give some general guidance on these, on forms and pets and issues. Now, again, these are little 8-minute videos that are guidance, really, more than anything. I'm not giving you legal advice. These are information videos to help you understand the laws. If you need to go farther, then you should seek out where to go farther. We could make these an hour long, but again, I think we'll leave that for lawyers to do that. So what I want to talk to you about are pets in rentals. Okay, so this has come up about, the biggest debate is, can they ask? Can they ask on the application if you have a pet? Yes, they can. So can they stop you from having a pet? Well, it's complicated. So there's a lot of different things going on when it comes to pets. So under the Residential Tenancies Act, a no pets clause is technically void after you sign the lease. Okay, so you have to remember the Residential Tenancies Act, the Landlord Tenant Board protect tenants, right? So understand this. You're not a tenant until you sign a lease. Then you're a tenant. Until you sign that lease, you're not a tenant. You have no protection from Landlord Tenant Board. However, that being said, you do have protection, so don't confuse this, but you have protection from human rights and different types of laws like that protect you, right? So human rights code's a big one. That protects you. So there's things you can't ask on an application, and there's things you can, and then the Residential Tenancy Act protects you from things, but the Landlord Tenant Board only comes into play after you've signed a lease and you're actually a tenant. Okay, so this means a landlord can ask. They can ask you not to have pets, but once you've moved in and signed the lease, they can't evict you because you have a pet. However, I don't know why you'd want to get into this situation. I think you should just be upfront about it, because you can get evicted for having a pet, but not because you have a pet, because of what the pet is doing could cause problems, okay? So special cases. Now, service animals are protected under the Ontario Human Rights Code, okay? So if you have a disability, your service animal cannot be denied. Also, emotional support animals are increasingly being protected. But this can get legally complicated. So again, speak to a licensed legal professional if you're facing any conflict with that. I am not a licensed legal professional. Just want to make that clear for the one person who wanted to point that out. Some people are against people trying to share insight and help. So service animals protected, support animals complicated but growing, okay, in protection. Now, fees, pet rent, and damage deposits. So in Ontario, landlords cannot charge a pet rent. There's only a couple things landlords can charge for, okay? Or higher monthly fees just because you have a pet, and they can't ask you for more than 1 month's rent as a deposit either, okay? So damage caused by your pet, that's a different story. If the pet damages the property, you're on the hook for that, okay? I've had that in my own property. Tenant was very upfront about it, said the dog keeps scratching. I'm not against pets. So the dog keeps scratching at the one of the baseboards. So it's about every year this tenant goes and has a new baseboard installed, and they pay for it themselves, and it's great. And when they leave, they'll replace the baseboard as well, or at least let us pay for it because we like to do a full cleaning. So, or they'll pay us to take care of it, okay? So you're definitely on the hook for your pet's damages. So pets tend to, you can think of damages, you can put them down in the comments. Things pets damages, they pee on things, and cat pee can be pretty pungent. They can scratch on things. Cats tend to scratch at the sided doors. Dogs can wreck screens when they try to scratch at a screen to get in, or scratching at the door to get in or out of a house. So, and if you don't pick up dog poo, that can become a problem too, because especially in summer, you can really smell it, right? So, before you sign a lease, a landlord can refuse to rent to you because of your pet. Tenant protection under the RTA mostly kicks in after the lease is signed, okay? So until you sign, other protections like the Ontario Human Rights Code still apply, especially if discrimination is based on disability. All right, so practical tips for tenants and landlords. So I'm trying to address both tenants and landlords here and just be down the middle. I've said this many times before, we have bad tenants out there and we have great tenants, and we have great landlords and we have bad landlords, okay? So for tenants, always be upfront about your pets where possible. That's my opinion. It sets a positive tone, avoids surprises. For landlords, be clear in your lease wording, outline expectations, maintenance responsibilities, and potential consequences if pets cause major issues. Good relationships, fewer headaches. That's kind of what I think. So, kind of in conclusion, pets are part of the family. People really, really love their pets. Ontario law recognizes this, but communication, honesty, and respect are still the key points to making rental agreements work for everyone. If anybody has any comments about pets or horror stories, so I forgot to mention this too. Condominiums may have a no pet clause in their condominiums. That's an exception where a landlord can say no pets, and even if you were to sign a lease, you have to follow condominium rules, and that condominium rules may say no pets, or they may have size restrictions sometimes on pets, or the amount of pets you have. Those rules need to be followed, okay? So there's no getting away from that, and that's going to get you into a headache, because that's going to cause legal problems down the road, and I can't expand on that, but it's going to be a problem if you move into a place, tell them you don't have a pet, and you do, and it specifically says you can't have pets, and that one is protected by law. So that's a problem. Now, again, getting back to the pets, if you have a pet that's loud, noisy, disruptive, taking the lawful enjoyment of property out from other tenants, that's going to be a problem. If it's biting or attacking or jumping on people and wrecking their clothing, that's going to be a problem. So, and there may be people in your neighborhood that, so a complex that I own, it's not a big one, so I'm not that guy. I have 8 units in a complex, and one girl has a dog that is very, very friendly. Her dog is incredible, but people don't know that for the first time. This dog's grown pretty quick. It likes to jump up, but it's the friendliest dog. It's never bitten anybody, but most people don't know that. So they find out, it really scares the heck out of them when it runs at them and jumps up, because there was the same 8 tenants in there for at least a year at one point, and everybody knew the dog and everybody loved when the dog ran at them. But when a new tenant came in, they didn't love the dog running at them, and then the dog jumped up and ripped a piece of their clothing. So we had to go to that tenant then and say, you got to control your dog now. It's going to have to be, it's in a common area. It's going to have to be on a leash. And really, there was a restriction on pets to begin with, but we didn't really enforce it as a group. So they've kind of been grandfathered into that. So that's okay. But they still have to follow the rules of picking up the feces and leash and stuff like that. So I think the best thing is to be as honest as you can, and then you don't take your landlord off, because then they don't turn blind eyes to things. They start looking for things, right? And you guys may not know it as landlords or tenants, but there are private landlord sites. And I've actually seen a tenant one that talks about landlords, but there are private landlord sites where they talk about tenants that have been a problem. And they say, this tenant has just been evicted, be careful, watch out for them. So if you want somewhere to live, it's always best to do the right thing, right? So here we are. I just want to help you understand your law around pets, and I want landlords to understand about pets too. You can ask. So to recap, you can ask if they have pets. You're open to ask that, but you can't evict someone because they have a pet unless there's a reason going with that. Okay, so please leave comments. Please subscribe to the channel. I love doing these videos. There's no cost to anybody. So enjoy, have a good weekend. If you have a question or something you want to hear about, please let me know, and enjoy the summer, everyone.